It's so easy to be average. It takes a little something to be special, doesn't it? It takes a little something special to be a great player. Did you push yourself to be great today?
Yeah. The man of Scarlet and Gray. Yeah. Let's go. The man of Scarlet and Gray. What we reading now? Who we listen to? Who we rockin' with hard? The man of Scarlet and Gray. Who we vibing with? Who we riding with? Who we clapping for love? The man of Scarlet and Gray. What we reading now? Who we listen to? Who we rockin' with hard? The man of Scarlet and Gray. Who we vibing with? Who we riding with? Who we clapping for love? The man of Scarlet and Gray. It's time for it. You ready for it? It's my time. You better know it. Let's go Bucks. Every time. Hating on us, you better.
Your undisputed source of all things Ohio State. This is the Men of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Here's your hosts, Shannon Summers and Chip Minnick.
The Men of Scarlet and Gray.
Buckeye Nation, welcome to another great edition of Men of Scarlet and Gray here on Buckeye Sports Radio, a V Sporto channel. I'm your host, Shannon Summers, writer and editor for menofscarletandgray.com. I am honored to be joined by my co-host, Chip Minnick, also a fellow writer and editor for menofscarletandgray.com. How are we doing today, Chip?
Doing well. The NFL draft is on the horizon, and Ohio State looks very well poised to be the topic of conversation for all 3 days.
It's officially Christmas in Cleveland. What kind of gifts are we going to get this year?
Or if you want to think of it from a Festivus perspective, more like the airing of grievances as it relates to the Cleveland Browns and Ohio State players. But we'll talk about that momentarily.
Right, that'll happen in week one, the airing of grievances. Today we're pleased to be joined by Ryan Rosko, editor for Factory of Sadness. How are we doing today, Ryan?
Doing well. How about you?
Pretty good. We thank you for coming on and talk to us about the NFL draft, Ohio State, and of course, some of our fans, the Cleveland Browns. Before we get into our podcast, we want to remind you about the Buckeye Sports Radio app available on your favorite iOS or Android devices. I have it on my Android, and I know Chip uses it on his iPhone. It's a must-have for any Buckeye fan who wants the latest and greatest in Ohio State news and information. Ryan, first of all, a couple of questions. I mean, we have a lot of questions and everything. We know Factory of Sadness. You guys talk about the Browns, talk about Ohio State and everything. And yesterday you just put out an article about why the Browns shouldn't draft Cardale Jones, which we'll get into that a little bit later. But you also have another article about some of the things that you probably kind of like to see. I know Chip and I have always discussed this for the last year, is the lack of Buckeyes that likes to draft. I mean, do you feel that that's a problem, or do you think it's – what are your thoughts on the lack of Buckeyes that the Browns draft?
I think it's just a matter of circumstance. I mean, you see other teams such as the Pittsburgh Steelers draft a number of Ohio State players over the years. It's not that they just don't draft for need or draft for best player available. They're drafting for fit, and they're not going to ask too much of players compared to other teams. Unfortunately, with the situation that the Browns are in, they're going to be needing to draft whomever, wherever they can. But with the dysfunction that years has been continuing, who can really say what path they need to go to? If they have a path and they have a plan to continue, such as Pittsburgh or such as Green Bay or any of these other teams that are drafting and continuing to draft later in the rounds, then maybe you can see a lot more opportunities for Ohio State players to be drafted, because they're not going to be drafted with the expectation to go to Cleveland and be fill in the blank, whatever you want to call it, the savior of that town, that city, that possession, etc.
Chip, I'll let you go ahead and ask your questions that you have and everything.
All right. Well, Ryan, I mean, Ohio State, as I mentioned at the onset, Ohio State has arguably 14 potential, if not 15, players that are rumored to be in contention to be picked over the next 3 days. Everything, I'm kind of led to believe that tomorrow night with the first round, 5 players will be picked in the first round. I guess I realize Factory of Sadness focuses on the Cleveland Browns, but Do you have any idea in terms of other organizations around the NFL, if you have any contacts, do you have any idea about when or where you could see the Buckeyes being picked in the first round? Like the rumor supposedly is that Dallas has a strong interest in both Ezekiel Elliott and Joey Bosa. Do you have any strong feelings on where players may be picked from Ohio State tomorrow night?
Yeah, I do. You mentioned 5. I think there's a chance for 6, but I'll get to that in a second. Ezekiel Elliott, I think the ceiling is 4. The lowest he's going to go is 13, barring a trade with Miami coming up to go get him. Bosa, I'm not as high on as other people. I don't even view him as a top 8 player in this draft. However, I still think he'll go between Dallas and Tampa. He's not going to drop past Tampa at 9. Darren Lee, he's not going to be going in the top 10, that's for sure. But because Chicago needs help at outside linebacker, he could go 11, but or just new linebacker in general. Because I view him as someone who can be, I wouldn't say like a Miles Jack who can play everywhere on the field, but wherever you put Darren Lee, he's going to succeed. That being said, I don't see him being drafted no later than 19th at the latest. But more than likely, you can see 17 Atlanta is probably the most logical spot. And it just depends with these tackles. Taylor Decker, well, some people may like Jack Conklin better. That being said, how far does Decker fall, if he falls at all? I mean, I had thought of him as a top 12, 14 pick. Now that this draft is here, I'm like, I think he may be closer towards 18 or so. He'll probably get drafted no later than 18. He's not going to fall into the 20s. Eli Apple, I think he's the most interesting Buckeye tomorrow because you kind of know where everybody else is going. Eli, I've seen him in mock drafts going as high as 9 to Tampa, as low as out of the first round. Who knows where he's going to go? I think he's going to end up around, I think it's something probably like 19 or so, but he's not going to drop out of the first round. Pittsburgh or Green Bay or somebody will select him before the first round ends. Now, I mentioned 6 players. Von Bell is that 6th player. It just depends. Does John Elway want to pick a quarterback at 31? If he does, great. If he doesn't, great. Whatever he wants to do, fine. So, for the sake of Bell's future, they need help at safety. He'd be a logical spot. I think the highest he could go is 31. But more than likely, he'll probably drop down into the second round.
So in terms of the players kind of going beyond the first round, I actually, for what it's worth, I think we have a difference of opinion on Joey Bosa's value, but as a Browns fan, in the sense of the Browns playing a 3-4, I don't see Joey Bosa being a good fit with the Browns. I could see him being a more logical fit with a 4-3 defensive end. That's the position he played at Ohio State. That being the case, I think if Ezekiel Elliott is on the board at number 8, where the Browns are currently picking, I think that's where the Browns make that trade down. My long-winded intro notwithstanding, there are 2 players that I think would be ideal for the Browns as an Ohio State fan that I'm hoping to see, and I'm just kind of curious for your opinion. Hopefully on day 2 that he's still available, wide receiver Michael Thomas, and possibly even on day 2, late, maybe in the 3rd round, tight end Nick Vannett. What are your thoughts on those players?
Michael Thomas, I view him as a second-day pick, round 2, very early. Depending on how early Laquan Treadwell, Josh Doxson goes, there's a chance he could probably slide into the late and in the part of the first round, but I don't see it. I see him second day. I wouldn't say it as a value pick, but he's a very good early day 2 pick. and he should be able to be a number 2 starter for any team from the start. Vannett, I actually think he'll be available closer towards the end part of the day 3, or end part of day 2, late 3rd round. So I think he'll be available, but I wouldn't be shocked if he dropped into the 3rd day. But if he did drop in the 3rd day, he'll end up getting drafted 4th. Mid 4th is probably a comfortable area I'd like to see him go. He probably should go. But if the Cleveland were to have interest in either player, the preference has to be Thomas.
And I realize Shannon has questions as it relates to Cardale Jones, and I'm only surmising because I know months ago when Tyvis Powell declared for the NFL draft, Shannon had some strong feelings, so I'm not going to presume to ask questions about Tyvis Powell. But the last question I had is, I realize there's a difference between players visiting a team's facility like the Browns or Cincinnati or Pittsburgh versus an NFL team going on campus, such as Baltimore, Dallas, Tennessee. They've all conducted workouts at Ohio State where you can actually have the player go through physical drills. When the player comes to your facility, they're not allowed to do that. So I guess my question is, do you have any information if the Browns conducted any kind of private workouts at Ohio State, or did they just attend Ohio State's pro day back in March?
As far as I know, they've only attended the pro day. I have not seen or heard or read or anything, any information regarding any information to say differently.
Now, is there any former Buckeyes that you'd like to see the Browns draft?
Because of their issues on offense, Michael Thomas is probably my preference, and then Ezekiel Elliott right there as well. Zeke's probably 1A, Thomas is 1B. Outside of them two, I probably would go down to Darren Lee. Other than those 3 players, I wouldn't probably select any other players based off of the current roster.
Now, I know there's rumors out there abound that, like, the Miami Dolphins already have a deal in place. If Zeke's there at 8, that the Browns are going to allegedly trade out of it. I know you wrote, or, in your little piece that you had, breaking down the draft a little bit and what the Browns might do, you basically, like you just said, you like to see them get Zeke, that you think that Zeke would be the perfect fit for the Browns and probably be a bad idea to trade out of it.
It would be a great opportunity to select Zeke, but when I think they're thinking long-term, just like in Dallas, you're going to see a lot of running backs just go behind that line just because you're going to have success. I think they're just going to build with what they can do, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do pass on Zeke, unfortunately.
So in your opinion, why do you think that Joey Bosa is not even worth the top 8 pick?
Well, based off of, first of all, the teams that are currently selecting the top 10, the top 12 area, their needs aren't really necessarily based off of what Bosa can give them compared to other players like DeForest Buckner and players like that. And going off of that, basically watching Bosa, if he has to play in the 3-4, he can't play on the line. He's going to have to be a stand-up linebacker, and I don't see him having too much success with that. In a 4-3, he'll have a little bit more decent success, but he just does not. How should I say it? I'm not sold on his lateral ability to create opportunities for himself. And he's going to go to a bad team, which means there's not enough talent on that defensive line to help him out, get that success, and he can't shoulder that load and burden of creating everything. And going off of that, looking forward, I'm not saying he's not going to be a bust by any means. He's going to have a solid career. But it's just personal preference, just evaluating everything, watching what he's done. I think I could get him. I'd rather select him later in the first round rather than I'm sold on him. He's not going to be like a Mario Williams when he came out of NC State or anything like that. I think it's just his playmaking ability is there, but it's just it's just not up to par compared to what you'd like to see in a defensive lineman, what I've seen.
You are listening to Men in the Scarlet and Gray on Buckeye Sports Radio, a V Sporto channel. My dream scenario is, and you guys both said that Bosa's probably not good for the 3-4, and you both can be absolutely correct on that. My dream scenario would be for the Browns to get Bosa in the second round, pick up Thomas, and then later pick up Cardale Jones. Like I said earlier, you wrote an article about not the Browns should stay away from Cardale. Why do you feel that they should stay away from him?
Well, I don't want to go too many details into it because I don't want to ruin the piece. But basically, if you just watch everything that Cardale does, some of it is pretty impressive, especially his arm strength. But once NFL teams figure out how to fix that, their issues against him because of his arm strength, what's he going to do after that? Yeah, he has the size, but plenty of people have the size and then some in the past, and not really worked out. And obviously they didn't have the arm strength he does. And whether it's Cardale Jones or any other quarterback, any team that passes on a quarterback, they're risking a future of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, etc. But more than likely, they're going to get an average quarterback at best. Cardale Jones is going to take a while because of his mechanics, because all he focuses and basically puts himself onto the field with is because of his arm strength. You take that away, what else can he do? He can't take that arm strength and deliver shorter passes because his arm strength is too hard and people are going to drop the passes. And like I said, I don't want to get too in-depth with the details. There's a lot of things, whether it's just on the field, off the field. His arm strength is impressive, but it's not the only key component to what you need out of a starting quarterback. And it's just not a fit for Cleveland, even though they're in a long-term approach. They can't have a long-term potential project on their hands. Once they're ready to go, they need a quarterback that's going to be ready to go.
You mentioned something about you'd like to see possibly the Browns draft Darren Lee, which I think would be a possible good move on their part. As far as, we'll totally go all Browns here now for this question. What is your dream scenario for the Browns to get in the first round? I know there's rumors of them trading down and trading back up from down and this and that and left and right, and they're even talking about Hinckley native Connor Cook. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are you hoping to see from them?
If they stay at 8 and no trades are made regarding the first round, preference is Ezekiel Elliott, number one. But then, depending on what else is on the board, they need a lot of help on offense. They need pretty much a lot of help on defense, too. If Laramie Tunsil somehow fell to 8, the right side of the line certainly needs an upgrade. I'd certainly consider Tunsil there. Would consider Conklin or Decker, but that'd have to be, assuming a trade would have to be made. But again, going back to 8, I'd like to really see pretty much any playmaker, whether it's Elliott, Jalen Ramsey, Tunsil, Miles Jack. Any of those 4 would probably be my preference. But at the end of the day, if I was turning that card, assuming all of them were available on the board, I'd probably have to go Elliott, but it would be very hard to turn down Jalen Ramsey. But going past 8, I don't think I would trade back into the first round unless I really saw somebody significantly drop. And if he did not drop, that's whomever that person may be, I let it ride because you got the first pick in the second round. I'd rather take that risk. They have 12 picks, so they're going to be able to fill that roster. So take what you can get at 8 and work its way back unless something very exceptional and rare happens regarding a player dropping.
You think it would be smart for the Browns to wait for a quarterback for next year with their draft picks if they need to, package something together? And I mean, might say really move up because they're probably going to be up at the top of the draft board with the 2 picks between them and Philadelphia after that trade.
Right.
But do you think that they're better off waiting until next year for a quarterback?
Well, I would select quarterback, but I'm not selecting him in the first 2 days in this draft. I know there's been talk of Josh McCown being cut, Robert Griffin third starter, and assuming a rookie comes in, he would be the backup, and Austin Davis would be trying to compete for that backup role, maybe a third stringer. Hey, I'd be okay with it, but I'm also okay with how the quarterback room is now. There's no guarantee RG3 is going to be going back to the form he was in 2012. I think he is going to be much better than he has been in the last couple of years, and obviously, playing last year it certainly helped him because he sees the field from a different perspective. And so I would go a third-day draft pick quarterback, not expecting much, hoping for the best, and then let RG3 play. And if he can play and prove that he's everything that you expected and then some, keep him. Let him start. However, the losses do say a lot too. And they're probably going to, like you said, they're going to lose a lot. Probably going to be at the top of the draft board next year. I just basically play it by ear. Wouldn't plan a day 1 or day 2 quarterback being picked. That'd be my preference. Next year, there's a lot of more variety in terms of quarterbacks, and this year was basically just golf and Wentz. Next year, I see a lot more opportunities headlined by Watson, and once that happens, who knows? Watson could be the face of Cleveland football for years to come, assuming Cleveland gets up that high. But I just basically, like I said, just wouldn't roll out anything just because it is Cleveland. But if they be smart, they signed RG3 for a reason, so they have to like him, have to have some plan for him.
Now, your site, Factory of Sadness, you cover the Browns, the Cavs, Ohio State. Do you have any thoughts going into the summer as far as what your predictions, just off the cuff, might be for Ohio State next year?
Well, I'd like to see them obviously go undefeated. I want to watch a little bit more film of a couple of different teams before the season were to start. But I think the issues we saw Ohio State have on offense going with their musical chairs last year between Jones and JT Barrett, I'm glad it has stopped. Barrett's going to be coming back, and unless something random happens, I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the season he's holding that Heisman Trophy, and at worst, Ohio State's in the Rose Bowl.
I like those predictions.
Just because.
Chip, do you have any more questions or anything?
I'm surprised you didn't ask about Tyvis Powell. I left that for you because you were publicly advocating a few months ago for the Browns to draft Tyvis Powell because he's a Cleveland guy.
I'm still advocating for that.
Okay.
It's one of those ones where, unfortunately, if anything, Ryan, as far as your thoughts as Tyvis Powell, where do you think that he might get drafted at? In the second or third round?
No, I think he's going to be more of a early day 3 pick, 4th or 5th rounder.
Do you think it would be smart for the Browns to go ahead and snatch him up? Because I know when they released Dante Whitner, he came out on Twitter saying, "Hey, I know you're looking for a new safety, and hi, how you doing? My name's Tyvis Powell." Basically, I don't remember the exact quote of the tweet, but I'm just paraphrasing.
Right.
He's a hometown boy, and he would love to be wearing the brown and orange. What are your thoughts on that?
He's a talented player, and if the opportunity presented itself, I'm sure he'd do well in Cleveland. However, Cleveland has a lot more needs, even though I really would like to see at least one safety being drafted, just because I'm not a fan of the whole safety situation in Cleveland at the moment. If they don't draft a safety by let's say by the end of day 2, Titus Bell should be either their top-rated safety or within their top 2 safeties on the board heading into day 3. And as long as they filled other needs, add a wide receiver, add help along the offensive line, defense, front seven help. If Titus Bell is there for, let's say, the 100th overall pick, if he's there, maybe they start talking. Maybe they wait till 138. If he's there, I wouldn't be surprised if they take him, but I would prefer to see him not being selected sooner than round 4 or so, just because I see a lot more players that are talented and would probably be a better fit than him into the first 2 days.
Now, what are your thoughts about the rumors of Eli Apple possibly getting selected by the Pittsburgh Squealers and joining Shazier in that defense?
It would certainly make an interesting fit. I mean, Pittsburgh has not been drafting defensive backs in the first round in a very long time. I believe the last defensive back they selected actually in the first round was Troy Polamalu. So obviously that worked out. But they need corner help. Eli Apple comes in. If he can just improve on his ability to play the defender when the ball's up in the air, I think he has a great shot at being a great starting safety or corner in the NFL. And for pretty much any team, if he were to continue his long career, he should easily be a number 1 corner, assuming he cleans up some of his issues coming out of college.
All right, final question I have. Do you think that Buckeye fans will be happy that we'll probably, have tied the record with Miami for most first-round draft picks? And or do you think the Browns fans will be happy with what they do?
I think both fan bases are going to be happy because Ohio State, they have one group leave, they have another group ready. They don't leave holes on their roster. They're going to continue to fill them with talented players, and they're going to continue to win, and that's what matters. And so even though it will hurt not seeing Ezekiel Elliott and Darren Lee on that field for Ohio State on Saturdays, they still have a lot of other players that are the new faces of the team, going to lead them to hopefully a national championship, at least a Rose Bowl berth. And for Cleveland, the fans are going to be happy, but it just also seems at the same time they're also kicking themselves for whatever reason because the Browns didn't do this, but they did do that. So either way, I think it's going to be a mixed bag, but they're going to be happy, but it may not be the exact approach as to what they're thinking, but long term, I believe it should work out, depending on whoever the player is. Just because of everything we've been hearing. If it's a trade down, then I think it all goes out the window. If it stays at 8, we kind of know who Cleveland is going to be having an opportunity to select there. And each of those players can either feel a need immediately or is a long-term great option at their position. And because of that, they may not win technically now. For long term, they could be some of the smartest moves made yet.
Okay, Chip, did you have anything else this time?
No, like I said earlier, my biggest hopes as a Ohio State fan and as a Browns fan, if I can come away from this NFL draft with Michael Thomas and Nick Vannett, I think 2 players that could come in and contribute right away at positions of need, I'd be excited. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that on day 3, and more than likely he will be an undrafted free agent, but just because he's a Lorain County boy, I would love to see the Browns give Chase Farris a shot at Offensive line, he played right tackle for Ohio State. I think he projects as a guard at the NFL level. It's one of those things where I would love to see as many Buckeyes wearing the brown and orange next year and hopefully getting the Cleveland Browns turned around in the right direction. So can't thank you enough, Ryan, for coming on our podcast. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you anytime. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much as well.
Definitely. Do you have anything you want to go ahead and plug?
Ryan Rosko Sports on Twitter. Other than that, no.
Don't forget, you can check out his work at factoryofsadness.co. That's .co. He's got some really good stuff on there, and you check out the article about why the Browns should stay away from Cardale Jones. Thank you for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's going to do it for us here on Men of Scarlet and Gray podcast. Hope you enjoyed another great show. We want to thank our listeners for tuning in and help spread the word. Remember, you can listen to our show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, and, of course, Buckeye Sports Radio. And we are also now available on Google Play Podcast. They finally let that go live this last week. You can follow Buckeye Sports Radio on Twitter at Buckeyes Radio. We want to thank Ryan Rosko again for taking the time out and talking about the Buckeyes and the Browns and the draft with us. Follow him on Twitter at Ryan Rosko Sports. And you can check out his work on factoryofsadness.co. It's factoryofsadness.co. He's got some pretty good articles and stuff on there. They got some good stuff. Chip, I know you just wrote a nice little piece about the Buckeyes draft picks and all that. Why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can find you and your work?
Well, thank you very much for that compliment. That article is actually written for Athlon Sports. I have an article that will be coming out on menofthescarletandgray.com lamenting the Cleveland Browns' seeming aversion to drafting Ohio State Buckeyes players. Hopefully that will change. Maybe even Friday night. Maybe I will have to do, Thursday night. Maybe I'll have to do a late night edit before it goes to the website on Friday morning. But I can be reached on Twitter at Chip Minnick, MINNICH. My work is usually on menofthescarletandgray.com as well as on athlonsports.com.
Excellent. You can follow me on Twitter at SMSOMMERS84. You can find my work on menofscarletandgray.com. I got to get some work going on that. I also can pleased announce I'm joining a team at talking10.com. Our friend Andy and Dave Fitzgerald over there. I'm going to be doing some work for Ohio State, covering the Buckeyes and covering up more of the Big Ten and stuff like that. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Now that my internet's back after digging up the cable line that they never came and marked for me, thank you very much, cable company. I'm not going to put you out there like that. But now my internet's back. I got a lot of work to do and get buckled down and get stuff done. Don't forget, you can check out our stuff, like we said, on menofscarletandgray.com, and got some good stuff up there. You can follow us on Twitter at Motsag Podcast. You can also like us on Facebook at Motsag Podcast. For Chip Minnick, I'm Shannon Summers. Thank you for listening to us and helping spread the word. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.